As Patti and I travel around the country, we meet some interesting and even some unusual people. And we thought it would be a great idea to tell their story. We're doing that in a way in a little video blog that we call Up Close and Personal. Now, today's story, Frederic Da Silva is maybe one of the most amazing human beings that I really know. He's a headliner magician here in the Las Vegas area, so we hope you enjoy this segment of Up Close and Personal on exploring through our lens. I'm Dan Hunt, and this is Up Close and Personal. Today's special guest, Frederic Da Silva. Frederic, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Dan. How are you? Good to see you.
Now, we actually are on the road with Up Close and Personal today, and we are here on your stage.
In Las Vegas at Bally's Hotel.
Bally's Casino Hotel. And how long have you been here doing your paranormal show?
Can't believe it's been already 7 years.
7 years.
7 years.
Now, I know you're quite the mathematician. Do you know how many shows that is?
I never count the shows. We never did the opening night. We never did a celebration of the 100 shows and 500 shows and 1,000 shows. I never count how many shows we did. And I know that in business people like to do that kind of stuff. But
yes.
We didn't even do the red carpet yet. So
we still haven't done the red carpet.
So I'm still improving, so I will be great for the opening official night.
Okay, so Frederic, let's talk a little bit about magic. I mean, you and I have a lot of ties to magic. You've been in magic your entire life.
I started magic at the age of 5.
At 5?
Yes. So Santa Claus gave me a magic box for Christmas, and I believed a lot in Santa Claus. Really, like. That was that guy who had the power to read your mind and knew if you were a good boy or bad boy. So my parents remember that I was always talking about Santa Claus. And Santa Claus gives me this magic box. And that was that emotional shock that for the rest of my life, I said, someone there is watching me and wants me to be special. And the secret about this book, someone wanted me to become a magician, and that gave me a purpose for the rest of my life. That touched my soul right away. I knew that this would be the one thing until the end of my life, performing magic.
4 or 5 years old?
5 years, yeah.
At 5 years old?
Yeah, I remember that like if it was yesterday. I remember everything.
You know, and not a lot of people remember that 5, 6, 7, that kindergarten. You know, if you ask me to remember kindergarten, I have no recollection of it whatsoever. So let's talk about you as a child. You got the magic set. But was there something else that influenced you that you saw at that young age that really kind of hit you?
Well, I remember I was spending a lot of time in my grandmother in Portugal, and every year there were that magician that come with a caravan and just put a couple of tables and chairs, and he was performing a levitation act, and you could see the picture, and I was really excited about that. And people in the village didn't seem to care a lot about this guy, but I thought that I was totally fascinated with the mystery of something impossible happening, how that dollar bill went from box 1 to box B, and how the doves were appearing, and how this lady was floating. I was shocked to see that I was the only one who really was excited about the whole thing, and I always been fascinated with the mystery of life. I remember as a child looking at the stars and be willing to go to the moon and be willing to fly, and to realize that I was so limited in my life. I'm a lonely child. I was spending a lot of time thinking about what my life would become, and magic was the answer for freedom and just having an extraordinary life and unlimited power to achieve whatever you want to achieve.
Do you remember performing for your family and friends at that 5, 6? We're watching some video of you when you were younger in the background. Tell me what it was like at that age to be performing.
It was always something very emotional for me to perform, because the reaction of the family, the reaction of the friends. I remember I was performing all the time. I had that magic kit all the time, and when I was in holidays or when we had family coming or friends, I wanted to perform, and people, the tricks were probably not good, but people were saying, "Frederic, you're a great magician. This is extraordinary," and the clapping and the attention and people wondering. I mean, even if they could figure out my tricks, the joy that kid was bringing for people to watch was something that really touched my heart. And I say, this is the only thing I want to do. And I perform. I spend more days in my life performing on the stage than not performing at all.
Were your parents, was your family supportive? I mean, it's cute as a 5-year-old, but when you're still at it at 10, were they still supportive to you?
Well, my parents, my mother particularly, was very concerned because she thought that I wouldn't have a regular childhood because I was spending all my time off, closed in my bedroom trying to rehearse the tricks, and I knew that keeping the secret was very important. So I was hiding everything, but I was rehearsing all the time, and I was imagining myself on the stage and performing, and I could see the faces of the audience, and I didn't really had a lot of friends. I was not going out. I was spending my time in my bedroom rehearsing, practicing every move, every detail until everything would be perfect. I had anxiety in missing a trick in front of someone, so I was over rehearsing every aspect of the trick.
As a child like that, how did you have somebody that you went and watched or had a mentor that taught you things, or did you read it all out of books that you bought and ordered?
Well, then it was a different time. I mean, I'm 37, so you're talking about 3 decades ago. 3 decades ago, we had no computers, we had no YouTube, we had no video cassettes, no DVD, no nothing. So it was a challenge to figure out the secrets of magic, because at that time, being a magician was something extremely rare. Nobody knew a magician. I mean, in your personal life, or in the neighborhood, or in the village, or in the city, or in the town, there was no magicians. Magicians were these people that you could see once in a while on television. It was something big. It was really exceptional to be able to see a magician. So the secrets were not everywhere where we can find them today. Finding a book on a library was a challenge. Finding another book and find how to get that book, and finding a store where I could buy a deck of cards, finding a rope to be able to do my magic. Everything was so difficult to find. It was a challenge. It was way more difficult. You need really to be fascinated and dedicated, and it was harder than I believe it is today to have access to that world.
How old were you when you first got paid to be a magician?
I was 13. So it started that I remember that I needed money to buy little speakers. So when I was performing, I want to put some background music.
Right.
And my parents told me, Frederic, you have to go. You can go. There was that street where there was some restaurants, and they say, well, you have to do some magic at the restaurant. You take your bicycle. So I bought these little hats, and so I went to the restaurants and I started performing, and I was leaving the hat at the end, and I was going to the next table, and people were putting coins or whatever. And at the end of the day, I came up with so many coins, and I had enough money to just buy these little speakers so I could perform and then have the speakers. So one of the restaurants noticed me and say, would we like to do that next week just for us, so you don't go to all the restaurants? And I say, yeah, I want to do that. But that restaurant was a pub, and you had to be 18 years to be in the pub. And I only had 13. And then they say, well, we don't know if we can do that. So my mother asked a permission for the government so I could work night at that age. So it was not the legal age to work then. Right. So it started like that. So I get paid, I get my first gig, and then I start to do private parties and gigs.
Now, you have literally performed all over the world.
Right.
I'm assuming you started performing in French.
Right.
When you came to the United States or you went to England to perform, did it really have an effect when you had to switch over to English?
Well, that didn't happen until my 30s because it took me all my life before I could get that show in Vegas. That was a dream as a child that right. I thought about that every day of my life. Everything I did, every gig I went, I thought I will become a better magician for my show in Vegas one day. But it took me a long time. But I hope that one day I will have to talk English during my show, so I was more than prepared.
You were more than ready. Was it a difficult transition for you?
No. I thought it felt right for me to speak English during my show.
You know, you and I have talked a lot over the last year that we've got to know each other, and one of the things that just amazed me about you as a human being and as an individual, you were so dedicated to be here in Las Vegas, but in the beginning it was tough. You weren't making it. So tell that story that you told me on your living room of going back and forth to make enough money over there to come back over here.
Well, I came in Vegas the first time I was 18. That was the gift of my entire family that put money to give me a trip to Las Vegas. I remember coming to Las Vegas, and that was my second emotional shock. The first one when I was a kid and I saw that magic, but the second time when I came to Vegas and there was something extraordinarily magical for me. It just felt, I knew that idea came in my mind. Oh, I want to live here and perform here. And at the same time I say, oh no, that's the same idea that I had when I was a child. This is going to pursue me all my life. This is impossible. This is going to be tough. I know there's nothing I can do about that. Changed my life right away. And I could still be here. I could still be in France, not realizing my dream. I would still be fighting for it, because there's nothing else that I really wanted to achieve more than this. So I was afraid that my life would go and I would die and say, I did nothing else in my life than trying to realize this, and I didn't get it.
So you worked very hard to get it.
I worked, but I had no idea what would be the road. I didn't know. I had no idea how the business worked. I came here, so I was working and doing small shows and cabarets, get paid $70, $80 a show, and that cost me $20 of gas every day. And but I mean, I need to work 1 month to get $1,000 so I could buy a flight to come to Vegas, and I could have the cheapest hotel, and I could come here for 4 or 5 days. So from the age of 18 to the age of 30, that's what I did every month. I came to Vegas, and then I figured out that with the jet lag thing, I could sleep on the street, on the grass in front of Caesar's Palace. I'm pretty much sure there was some grass at that time, because I remember sleeping on the grass, taking my luggage, go to a cheap hotel so I could put my luggage there and wait until the next day so I could stay one more night. And then I knock at people's doors, but I mean, obviously nobody cared about me. I tried everything to have people's attention to get a show in Vegas, but it took me 12 years before I get finally my chance.
12 years, and you basically during that time went back and forth.
Yeah.
Just every time you could get here, you
every
come
time
back.
I had $1,000.
You would get on a plane and come back. Now, eventually your career kind of really took off in France. You showed me some pictures earlier today of you in a room that was probably 5,000 to 7,000 people.
Yeah.
quite a difference walking into a room of 5,000 to 7,000 people.
Yeah.
How did that feel the first time you did that?
Well, I was performing very in an early age. I was performing private events,
Right.
so I was used to the big stage. I mean, one day you perform for 20 people, the next day it's a company of 5,000. So you perform for. So I never been intimidated performing in big stage or smaller stage. I was just doing my show, but yeah, then I start. So during all these years, I start to do television. But everything I did was to have attention, to have a show in Vegas. I start to produce TV shows in Las Vegas that people could see in France. So I thought maybe I can interview a manager of a guy or a restaurant. I remember going to the Eiffel Tower, and I say, well, at least the guy will give me attention, and maybe at the end of the interview, I'll say, hey, you know what? By the way, I do magic tricks. If you'd like, I could perform tonight for free for a customer. But nothing worked out, nothing. So I had this idea. If I was coming in Vegas and saying that I was a TV star in France,
Right.
and if in France I was saying that I was a performer in Las Vegas, and if I was saying these two same things at the same time, maybe both things will work at the same time, and this will become true. So that was one of the ideas, and it's kind of workout, but I was performing on the street. I never had a gig.
Never had a...
No.
Right. Now, here you are in Las Vegas, in a big stage. You perform one show a day, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. Sometimes you even do 2 shows
Right.
in one day. And when you go home and you put your head on the pillow, how does that feel to have achieved your lifelong ambition?
Well, I hope that I will never be satisfied with what we have, because this is when life stops to be fun. I'm always willing to connect with the audience in a better way, and to not just do tricks, but really engage with the audience, and so it's not just doing magic tricks. There's something else about being a showman, and to understand maybe the reason why I'm doing that.
At some point in your career, you kind of moved from magic, traditional magic,
Right.
to mentalism.
Yeah.
And you know, in your showman style, when I did the research on you, articles are out there saying the greatest mentalist in Europe.
Right.
And then 6 months later, the greatest mentalist in the world.
Right.
And I talked to some reporters that have interviewed you in the past, and they say the same thing. So tell me why you went from magic to mentalism, which is a kind of a form of magic, but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
It's a specialty.
Yeah.
So talk about that transformation over.
Mostly Vegas. I came to Vegas and I saw all these shows: David Copperfield, Siegfried and Roy, Lance Burton, and I start to realize that I would never compete with the $1 million shows.
Right.
And I hate the idea that someone with millions of dollars could just steal my show and do bigger and maybe better than I would do. I hate the idea to have to rely on props. I hate the idea that someone could work the show for me backstage and I was just the only one just taking a bow. I hate the idea that the assistant in the box were working more than me.
Right.
I didn't like sometimes the simplicity of the magic, like a trapdoor. And this is how the elephant appears. And to take all that credit, I thought that I want to have the talent and I want to be proud of my methods. behind the magic. So there's two aspects in magic. There's what the audience sees, the effect, the impact, and there's the behind the scenes. And I wanted something clever, something smart, something that I could be proud of, something without props or help of assistants, or no pre-show work with the audience, no preparation of the audience before the show, to be able to select people randomly, to not have stooge, to not have electronic gimmicks, no earpiece, no cameras, and not all that stuff. So I could walk on stage and know that the method is as beautiful. What is invisible is as beautiful as what is visible.
What is visible to the outside. Now, from a 5-year-old magician out of a bot box to a Las Vegas Strip headline performer, and you know, walking in this building today at Bally, or I walked actually in from Paris, and seeing your picture on that 50-foot billboard out there, that, you know, the electronic billboard that flashes through. How do you feel? How do you feel coming into this building, coming into your show? I mean, this is not an owned show by this person and this person and this production. This is your show. You own it. Tell me about, you know, where does that come from?
Well, I feel a lot about the people that have made my dream come true, which is the audience and the fans. And I have a very, very special connection with my guests. You know, when I came here in Vegas, when they finally gave me a chance to go from the street to inside the casino, I thought that this was the most important moment of my life, because I knew I've been waiting for so long. People wouldn't give me another chance. So I put all my savings to market the show. So I spent all my money in magazines and billboards. And I was afraid that they would tell me that the count and the sales were not good. So I keep not asking and delaying it. And at the day of the show, I couldn't even take my phone and call. So I sent an email to see how many tickets we have sold. And they told me 0. And they told me 0 for the following days, for the next week. So I say, God, this is the most messed up moment of my life. All my life I worked to make that dream come true. And I put all the efforts and everything. I don't know what else I can do. Now I can't mess up this moment. And I knew that I would be broke after 2 weeks. And I would have to close my show, and I know that they will never give me another chance. So my residency was 4 days a week when I start.
Right.
And I had a 6 weeks contract. So, but I couldn't do the 6 weeks contract. I knew that I would have to close before, because I couldn't pay the tax, the staff, the rent. So I decided I would go to Europe on my 3 days off, take a flight, find a gig, work as much as I could for 24 hours, come back to the next flight, and come here back to the stage with the money that I was asked to pay for everybody, so I could keep surviving another week.
Right.
And I ended by doing that for almost a year. I was on the airplanes all the time, jet lag. I couldn't sleep. I was arriving there, performing a gig and a private event, and coming back. And after 1 year, the numbers start to be finally good. And I realized that people had started to write reviews online. And people had rated my show. We were the #1 rated show in Vegas. I mean, we had 4.9 on Vegas.com, 5 stars on Yelp, 5 stars on TripAdvisor, 5 stars everywhere. And I still believe today that my fans had rescued me. Because I had no plan. I had no investors, I had no managers, I had no producers, I had no strategy, I knew nothing about marketing. I hope that people will help me, and they did. That's probably why today I still have that respect and that dedication for my fans.
You talk about respect and dedication, and I'm actually going to address the audience for a second, because from firsthand I know and have seen VIPs here in the audience, but Frederic, at the end of every show, you invite everybody to come and take a picture with you and shake your hand, not for money, not for an extra sale, because you don't sell any other stuff outside. But I mean, I was here one day when you said to the VIPs, as soon as I'm done with my fans, with my audience, I will be back with you. And you went upstairs and you shook everybody's hand. That's a mindset that's very different than most other performers.
It's not just VIPs, is I invite everybody at the end of the show to come and meet with me.
Yes.
And I don't sell anything. And a lot of people have been asking, why don't you sell stuff? You would make a lot of money. And it's totally out of question for me to ask. Even to have something for sale in the meet and greet is something that I really don't want to.
Right.
Well, I've been waiting for people to come to see my show all my life.
And now you do really well. You pretty much sell out all the time, right?
True. We're the #1 afternoon show in Vegas in terms of sales. I mean, for that time slot.
You know, this show, the first time I saw it was probably 5-7 years ago, in your infancy. And the show has grown greatly now. We were talking the other night, how many, you went from probably 0 audio cues to now we have how many audio cues?
How many audio?
Over 1,000.
Over 1,000. Over 1,000 audio cues. And, you know, we've talked about this, that, man, you know every single one in your head as part of your show.
Yeah. Well, I steer rehearse with Jonathan, my technical director, every week, every Friday from 1 to 3, at least once a week, 50 weeks a year. We've been doing that for 7 years, adjusting the same show that I've basically been doing all my life. And there's never a time where I come here and we don't have something to fix, an audio cue to adjust a couple of dBs more or less, or I say let's adjust these cues, let's get half a second of this and let's put this light a little bit brighter, and or try a different music, or try a different line, or a different way to script the show, a different way to pronounce things. I start recording the show and I listen to the show and the audio when I go back home, and there's always room to improve, and I watch people all the time and I learn so much by watching them.
How about continuing education? Continuing the newer and better and bigger things. Do you add new tricks or gigs to your show, or is it pretty much been the same thing and you just improve on what you've been doing?
Well, you just say that. You come 5 or 7 years ago and you say the show has grown up so much. The acts are the same, and I love these acts and I don't want to change them. You know, lots of acts I do, they make me, this is the best mentalist of Europe. I mean, I won that I did the French Championships of Magic, the European Championships of Magic, then the World Championships of Magic. These acts are part of my life. I don't really want to change them. I'm fascinated with the idea to improve them and get them better and better and better, which is way more difficult than just say, hey, there's this new trick, I'm going to try this thing and get rid of the old stuff. When you want to improve the show, it's harder when you come here every week to try to improve the same thing and say, I can still improve that act. But the confidence to do something that you've been doing all your life, you know that nobody else in the world does this act better than yourself, because you did it thousands and thousands and thousands. It's part of yourself.
As we wind down, I know there's one more passion in your life besides magic and mentalism and being in this room and performing for the hundreds of people that come through here. Tell me about that other passion, about 35 miles to the east of us here.
I live in the Lake Mead in the national park, and I love the water, I love the calm, I love to wake up in the morning with nobody except ducks and the birds and the fish, and to walk on the docks really takes my brain out of the strip, and it clears my mind, and it gives me inspiration, and I love the nature and the silence there. Yeah, boating.
What's the future hold for Frederic? What is you see the next 5-10 years? You want to stay on this stage?
I don't mind staying on this stage. I like this stage. I'm really more concerned about see how this relationship with the audience and with the fans is going to grow up. I try to, sometimes I finish the show and I say, I didn't really show the man that I was. And I think this is something a lot about magicians. You work an act that is so impossible that it has to be perfect. So sometimes the personality hides behind the work, the performance. And I'll try to do things differently. If I don't meet with people after the show, sometimes there's an invisible curtain between the performer and the audience. And this is something that lots of magicians like. Like you have to be that guy on stage, not real. People can't touch you, they can't hug you. You're like a character, a mystery. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the day that I announced that I would do a meet and greet after the show, and people ask, can I hug you? Can I take a picture with you? And then people start to talk with me. I realized that a door opened in a world that I never had approached, and this is definitely something that I wanted to work more. I'd like to be more a showman than just a guy doing performing mind reading tricks.
It's really admirable the relationship that you have with every different audience that comes through this room. And it's very admirable. I mean, and you and I have talked about this for hours on end. You're very different than most people, because for most performers in this town, it's about selling something out there.
Right.
And you don't sell anything.
No. Well, sometimes I remember being a fan of people. You have the pictures in your wall and everything. I honestly can say that I became fan of my fans, of these people. They're just great people. I mean, they just fascinate me. I feel that I need to know everything about them, so I can do whatever life will tell me that I have to do. But I know that there's something that I need to learn with the audience that will bring me in a different road.
Well, Frederic, you're here, Bally's Casino Hotel. The showroom's called what?
Paranormal Mind Reading Magic.
But the
showroom is called the Magic Attic.
The Magic Attic.
Right.
And we wish you the best with this. And folks, if you are in Las Vegas, I got to tell you, this show is an absolute must-see. Thank you so much for being with me today.
And next time we'll talk about you.
We'll switch chairs next time.
Yeah.
I'm Dan Hunt, saying have a great rest of today and an even better day tomorrow.